Jeff Ward's board game event was fantastic. It was a great time of networking, chance to meet with not only students in other programs, but also reconnect with both New York area developers and developers from outside the New York area. Made some new contacts, and most importantly, I guess, for the program is that through our attendance, through my attendance there, the company Rio Grande Games specified that the games they donated for the board game night were to be handed out to instructors. So we have 4 new board games to use within the program that were donated by Rio Grande. I've already contacted them expressing our thanks, and these are games that one I learned just last night, others that I was familiar with, and are a really good addition to the kinds of things we want to cover in the program. Okay, day 1. The first 2 days of GDC are the tutorials. I jumped between both the IGDA education SIG in the morning, and then the mobile SIG for Android development in the afternoon, and then back to the IGDA Ed SIG. The opening 2 hours was done by Jessica Hammer from Columbia University, a friend and colleague. She was talking specifically about creativity in the classroom. Most interesting, it wasn't about the instructor's creativity, but how to establish a classroom that fosters creativity in our design students. She ran the workshop in a very interesting way, forcing us to come up with what would be the metric by which we would recognize whether or not our students were in fact exhibiting the creativity we wanted them to exhibit. My big takeaway from that question was, I want the students to be willing to risk failure, not in the class, but to try things and to to take risks in terms of taking an out there position and try to do something with it. And in the game design industry, we fail fast to succeed more quickly in the end. So we want to iterate, get all the bad ideas or the ideas that aren't working out. I want to foster an environment that encourages that kind of risk-taking, which means that I have to rethink assessments and try to figure out how to build more formative assessments into the mix. The other thing that I want the students to do in particular is to take it upon themselves to learn new technologies. I think that would also be a measure of success for creativity. So just in terms of checking my notes, if the students explore topics outside the curriculum on their own through their own passion for the topic, I think that would be a huge win and an indicator that the students are learning the sorts of skills they need to be successful in this field. So the other main focus then was preparation for the workshop that we were going to do and the study that we were going to undertake. So Jessica gave us 3 different lenses, if you will, to look at how we could foster creativity in our classroom. The first of which is developing critical faculties, the second of which is looking at motivation and affect, and then the third of which is fostering collaboration. So under developing critical faculties, the concern Jessica had, and I think this is a good one, is not so much that students learn how to generate a creative idea, but the fact is that we generate hundreds of creative ideas just through living our lives. What is important is knowing which ones to pursue and which ones to maybe put on the shelf for later and which are not as creative as you thought. So developing that kind of filter so that we can be pursuing the most advantageous path. With motivation and affect, the talk was largely about extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation, and also on the other secondary axis, whether that is positive motivation or negative motivation. There was a lot of discussion of different researchers looking at motivation, and the basic thing is intrinsic motivators beat extrinsic motivators on every area that they have been studied. so that if a task requires persistence, if you're intrinsically motivated, you're more likely to work harder and longer at succeeding, whereas with an extrinsic motivation, your motivation to take the task on and continue working with it ends once either the reward is attained or you no longer feel that you benefit from like that the reward is no longer worth it. In terms of challenge, you're willing to work harder and longer when you're intrinsically motivated if you reach a challenging task, and we meet a lot of those in game development. And the largest gap and the most telling one is that if you're extrinsically motivated, you are much less likely to be willing to take a risk, versus if you're intrinsically motivated, where you are likely to just go for the more difficult and the more risky idea, because you have a belief in it rather than the thought that maybe if I go for this idea and I let's say fail miserably at it, that it would maybe get a bad grade in the class. Then the third vector was collaboration, and the real question there was, how do you get a group to actually amplify the creativity? When you put two people together in general without some training in the group, two people are less creative than any one individual, because you start worrying about self-censoring. So fostering this idea that an idea that comes from someone will bring a piece to the table, and then someone else will take that and amplify it.